All right. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. My name is Dan Qualiana. Really excited to be able to join the conference here. Seen some really great sessions so far, and excited to share some of the new updates that we have with our Visibility IQ platform and some of the tools that we've updated for the developer community. So I'm going to start off by giving a little bit of a background around Visibility IQ and Visibility IQ Foresight. So this is a product that we've traditionally marketed more towards the user community, to our customers, to some managed service partners. And that's because we really were going to market with a built-in, it was more its own software application with its own built-in user interface. Back in December, we were able to launch an API interface, and that's when we started being able to shift some of our audience more towards this developer community. And so I'm going to start off with a little bit of an overview of Visibility IQ, and then I'm going to walk through a lot of the value add to developers, how you can use the system, and how some of the new insights and information we have ties in directly with some of the applications and some of the customer pain points you're working to solve. Then later today, we have another session with Pawan Kumar, who is one of our lead engineers and architects, and he's going to be diving in and showing a sample application that he was able to build using these APIs to do more of a code walkthrough and a demo on that side of things. So as we get in here, so Visibility IQ, it's a platform Zebra has to really give users a much deeper understanding into the devices across an entire deployment, what they have, where they have it, the health of those devices, so they can really optimize each and every one of them across the deployment and get the most out of them. So how are we doing that? Well, we're taking data that's coming from a lot of Zebra's internal systems, things around what types of service contracts do we have, how can we identify what devices are associated with each customer and partner pairing, taking in data from EMMs or MDMs around these devices, and then also data that can come from the devices themselves with some agents that we have. We're consolidating all of that into the cloud, in the Zebra Savannah cloud, and then we're performing some analytics on that. Some of those analytics are associating a lot of these different data points so that you can view information by across a whole company deployment. You can view things by site, by model, etc. Some of it's performing, we have some machine learning algorithms so that we can really get a deeper sense of not only what is going on, but start predicting what will happen in terms of some of these devices. So as I said, traditionally, we had originally gone to market with a user interface, with this dashboard approach. And now we have the APIs that we're going to walk through. So Visibility IQ, it's a product that's been in the market for 3 years. It had a previous iteration that was about another 3 years in the market. So at this point, we have over 250 customers. We have well over 1 million devices that are actively connected and under license with our system. So it's a very robust system. We're continuing to grow very fast, bringing on a lot more customers. Some other updates that we've had include we now, we are focused really on the machine data coming from these devices. So there's no personally identifiable information. There's nothing that really can put someone at risk in terms of privacy issues. But that being said, we really saw a need to make sure that we could do hosting within the EU, as well as we also have hosting within the US. Earlier this year, we launched support for printers. So these are the Link-OS printers, and I'm going to dive into that in a couple slides so we can talk through what that means. What can you do with the printers and as well as the mobile computers? And then the last really exciting update we had is, when we look at the usage of the devices, a big piece of that for some of our customers is around batteries. Battery management can be extremely challenging. And one of the things that we've developed is an algorithm around remaining useful life of that battery. We launched the third iteration of this algorithm, so we are now able to look at the age, the usage, the amount of current that's coming through in the charge, as well as tying that in with some of the manufacturer recommended usage. Putting all that together, we now have this predictive algorithm with significantly improved results that's able to predict when that battery is expected to no longer hold a charge through an entire shift, as well as when it's at risk of potentially overheating that could cause an issue there. And so we're able to present that, and I'm going to show this in much more detail going forward, but we're able to present that in terms of the number of days remaining useful life, giving plenty of notice so that people can then take action to whether it's order new batteries or pull those out of service. So we're really excited about that update. We've seen a dramatic increase in terms of the accuracy of that algorithm, as well as the batteries that are able to properly report. So overall, when we look at the system that we have, many of you, I know I was in on Darren's talk earlier, many of you are using some of those tools that talk directly to Zebra's devices, whether it's the EMDK or other tools. On the print side, the LinkOS SDK. So those tools, obviously we still have those, we continue to maintain those, but we have some other things kind of baked into the product, some agents that on the mobile computer side, we call it our Zebra Data Services agent, and on the print side, our Zebra Printer Connector agent. These are built into the device, they ship on the device, and they're ready to be able to use to send data up to the Savannah cloud. And what we're going to go through today is some of the benefit of that. Why use our agent and some of the APIs we've generated over potentially building some of this yourself? Because we today have a number of ISVs, developers who have built their own agents. And that is a perfectly valid way to go. And we don't expect companies to stop doing that. But at the same time, there is additional data that we have access to. And then as we are looking across the entire deployment of Zebra devices with the expertise that we know, looking at geographies, regions, verticals, use cases, et cetera, that we are able to look across all of that and pull in some of these algorithms to give greater insight beyond what other companies are. And so I'm going to go through some of the data that we have, how that ties in with those customer use cases, and some of that value that we have. Before I do that, though, I did want to focus a little bit on the print side of things. So a lot of the rest of the presentation is going to be really heavy on mobile compute side, but to just quickly highlight what we have with printers today. So first off, this system that we had was very exclusive to mobile computers. The way that we have this architected, we get the most bang for the buck from Zebra devices, Zebra mobile computers, but had the ability to pull in other devices through MDMs. In terms of value add through these APIs, that really, a lot of the benefit there really is tied in, the majority of it, to the Zebra devices. So that's the focus of my talk. But the biggest thing people had actually been asking for in our world had been around printers. And so we, as I said earlier, launched this in January. So we now can support any network connected LinkOS printers. So wired or wireless LAN printers. I do believe it needs to be LinkOS version 4 or higher. So that compromises the vast majority of devices out there. I believe that there are some QLN devices that have the opportunity to have a firmware version below that, but they can be upgraded so that we have the capabilities to support all those network connected LinkOS printers. So I guess just to clarify again, there is not support today for USB or Bluetooth connected printers through this solution. So what are we doing? What are we offering on the print side here? So for mobile printers, we hear a lot of concerns around loss of those devices. This is a similar type of use case we hear on the mobile computer side. Anything mobile that's not tied down or attached, either it can get stolen by potentially employees, but sometimes customers, or just the fact that it's mobile, it can get set down somewhere and misplaced and hard to recover. The battery side of things that I touched on earlier is another key area around mobile, so that we can make sure that any device that those customers are using, they don't need to, those workers don't need to lose some of their productivity by changing out batteries, that we can have those batteries last a full shift with high quality batteries with full life on them. And then on the stationary side, they're really, and I'll say again, as I get into some of the use cases later, you see this on mobile computer side, just better visibility into what devices do customers have, where are those devices at. Um, Oftentimes, these devices are purchased in batches over time. They go to different places and really lose that oversight into what do we have. So in terms of how we've built this out, we have done kind of our first two launches in terms of feature functionality on the print side. A lot of this has been to kind of match some of what we had on the mobile computer side. We're working then in our next phase to augment that with some unique printer capabilities. And so on this slide too, you can see most of this functionality today is in our user interface, the VisibilityIQ Foresight, but we do have 5 of these insights that are powered through APIs today. These actually launched last week, so they're new on the developer portal. We are actively working so that every month, every quarter, you're going to see more and more APIs on the print side as well as the mobile computer side. So today, you are able to get views into the remaining useful life of printer batteries. We have a unique algorithm focused on the printers. Also looking at issues when those batteries are running down below a certain threshold, that there's a low battery. And then some of these others are overviews in terms of how many of these devices are out in the field. Devices in operation gives you then visibility into utilization. Was it actually used in a given day? Out of contact helps you identify which things are connected and actively reporting, as well as tying that then back into the access points, the last known access point they were connected to, which can help with recovery for some of those lost devices. And then newly added devices is really focused in on when you have new deployments, or if you have devices coming back from repair, when are they then being received and turned on in the location, and then when are they actively being used after being connected back into that location, so that we can kind of we can start giving better insights into some of those rollouts to make sure the companies are getting the return on investment for what they have there. So with that being said, I'm going to walk through the API overview of what we have, and then dive down deeper into each of these to connect this with some of that unique value add that we have. This is an overall view of all the APIs that we have. So again, users can see this on our developer portal. I have a link towards the end to be able to see that. But I also just, on this one, I'm not going to go deep into each of these, but just so you can see, back in December, we launched 19 APIs. In Q1, we offered these 3 in the mobile computing space. This quarter, we have already launched those 5 APIs with printer support. And then later this quarter, we are launching the capability to be able to view by device what OS version is on the device, and then if there are available updates through that lifeguard offer. Similarly, on the scan side, to be able to understand the number of scans performed and how many are successfully performing, so we can start looking at performance of that, giving and then identifying when there's issues around that. We are then in Q3, we will have a full API offer that matches what we have within a VisibilityIQ Foresight, and ultimately shifting towards an API first model. So we're in the catch-up phase right now. In Q4, every new feature and offer that we release is going to simultaneously launch with the APIs. That means anything we're doing going forward, we have that offer out there for the developers to take full advantage, to be able to integrate this information into your own systems. So whether it's a business application or you're looking to tie this in with some service offers, any of that can be taken advantage of. All right. So in terms of why use our APIs, and in particular, what benefit do you get from this agent that we have running, in this case, on the mobile computers? So this, as I said before, is something that's pre-installed on all of the devices. So it doesn't need that install to be taken place. There is configuration that can be done to make sure that it's turned on and to set the frequency at which those updates are sent up to our cloud. So the default we have in there is every 24 hours, but it can be configured to be upwards to every 30 minutes that we're able to receive that information. So I do want to reiterate again, we are focused on machine data, so there's no transactional data. Anything in terms of application interface, information typed into those applications, we do not have access to any of that. The agent itself does manage its own updates. It can be controlled through an EMM, but it's also something that just we try to set it up so that it's maintenance free. Generally, once a quarter, we're looking at doing updates to this, security enhancements, occasionally some new data points, but generally they're focused on performance and security updates. Another benefit in terms of cost and everything, we are maintaining and hosting this. So all of that data transfer, the storage in the cloud, the analysis of it, that's all part of what we do. We have been doing this for a number of years, probably 4 or 5 years that we've actively had this system going with that data in the cloud that we've been analyzing to improve our insights into these devices and really push more through back then to our customers. We've also been able to optimize how that runs on the device. So very minimal usage of battery as well as CPU, very low memory footprint on the device for the app as well as the data that it's storing. So in terms of bandwidth impact, that's below, the way we have it set up, it's below 61K that's hitting, even though there's generally the maximum data size of what needs to be sent is 2 megs, but we've really optimized that to have as limited impact on the bandwidth of these customer networks as well. And then lastly, we have a lot of unique data points, and that's what I'm going to walk through next. If you do want to learn more about the agent, I have the link here that's located on the TechDoc site. There's a number of pages with detail around that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to walk through, we have some things around the contract repair, the battery, the device itself, and the utilization. And I'm going to show some of these unique data points and why people care about them. So one thing that a lot of our customers as well as service partners really appreciate about the system is the greater visibility into the repair life cycle. When we look at a customer deployment, there's generally, even though Zebra has very high quality for our products, when we have customers with tens or even hundreds of thousands of devices, there ends up being a large number of devices in repair. So what happens when devices are in repair and you have high volumes? There's a lot of confusion around what is at a site, what is in transit, what is in repair, what is coming back from repair, as well as what's going on with a spare pool. So through these APIs, we have one on this repair lifecycle. It gives a high level of detail around that. Well, why do we care? So one is that identity to where those devices are in repair. So it's kind of my second bullet point here. So we can identify, if there's issues with the number of days overdue. We can identify if there's issues between what was expected to be received versus what was actually received to reduce on lost devices, and then manage, identify whether these have been on time and they're kind of meeting the needs that we have. Another big issue that we have is, once these devices are sent out, unless something's coming in from a spare pool, we run the risk that someone is without their device, impacting productivity. And so if a device is sent out unnecessarily, that impacts the business. It also drives up costs in terms of devices, shipping costs, and issues around that. So we want to reduce those. We call them no fault founds. So through this, we can actually start looking at what are some of the trends that we're seeing. What are some of the issues that are coming in? So we can look at what are the faults, what are the actions that are being taken in that repair and the remedy, as well as there's several different problem codes that come through. By analyzing that, we can start to identify if there are similar types of issues. So some of these may be damage to a device, some may be other types of things where there could be actions to help prevent those, whether that's looking at updating operating systems or applications more effectively, looking at trying to train people to be a little more careful with how they treat the devices, et cetera. So the next thing that we have here is, device entitlement. So this is a little more straightforward, but basically, do you have a service contract? When's it expected to expire? And there we have some thresholds built in. This can allow a service partner or a customer who's wanting to be more proactive, make sure they don't have a lapse in that entitlement, to stay on top of that. Looking at the battery side of things, so I talked earlier around battery. So battery definitely has some significant direct ties to worker productivity. But one other interesting thing is that battery performance actually has strong ties into the loss of devices as well. So when a worker knows that there are devices with batteries or batteries that don't work well, that's when they start doing things such as hiding the good devices or putting things that aren't working in places so people don't use them. And then that ends up driving up costs for these users. So having a strong battery management system is extremely beneficial. How can we help with that? That gets into that remaining useful life algorithm that I was mentioning. So within this, we call that RUL, remaining useful life. We have a number of different thresholds within this. So we have a specific number of days. So it's from 0 to 179 and then 180 or more. We then have some categories, some groupings, and then we identify normal, warning, and critical. Critical is 0, remaining useful life. Warning is the 1 to 30, and normal is 31 or greater. So these are things that by pulling that in, you can start creating a better battery management system. We also see companies that after a certain amount of time tend to just order batteries in bulk. And then if those batteries aren't needed, or sometimes people aren't even aware of that, they end up wasting money. And so this allows people to tie directly into which batteries need work, which should be replaced. Another one is looking at critical events and battery swap activity. And I guess just to kind of reiterate, all these data points I'm highlighting, these are all unique within our system that you're not going to get from working through EMDK or standard Android APIs into the devices. So by looking at this battery swap and critical battery events, what we're able to do is start identifying, on top of the remaining useful life, issues that are going on. So some of these could be, we're not charging a battery for the full amount that it should happen. Maybe there's something with a business process that needs to be changed. Maybe there's an issue with an app that's causing significant battery drain, or an issue with a device. So by piecing together some of these different data points, we can really start to identify what needs to be addressed. So the critical battery events, as I mentioned earlier, that one highlights when we have a threshold, when the battery drops and how many times it drops below that threshold. So by looking through that, we can see, are we regularly having the workers run into issues where they're having to then impact the device or the performance of the battery, and then that ties in with these swaps that are going on. So now moving over to the device fleet management. So this was one I mentioned on those stationary printers, and we see this really across all devices. Sometimes this gap in understanding of what someone has, where it's at, and the status that these devices are at. So really trying to look across this overall total device in the fleet. Our system works by looking at a service contract. What is all under service and what should be there versus what is there and what is reporting. So one thing I highlighted earlier was we have a new device deployment, we're rolling things out, or due to the repair cycle, we're getting things that were sent away, now they're coming back. We want to identify if we're seeing issues between when that device is first seen and when it's first used. Utilization, today we have that defined as looking at a battery drain. Later this quarter in June, we're updating that so that it's turning into a more complex algorithm, so that it's looking at scans, number of scans done, application usage, backlight usage, as well as battery drain. And then in July, we're working on turning that so the user can specify, they could actually pick business apps being used or the number of scans being done, so they can really classify what utilized means. Similarly, today, we're looking at utilized as a once every 24 hours data point. So we can say in a given day how much these are used. We, in June, with the other update, will be rolling that into every hour. So that then can start giving a view into, by model or by site, how across shifts, how optimally are we utilizing those devices to get the most out of them. I mentioned earlier out of contact. So out of contact gives us data around, whether that's in use or not reporting to the system and how long that's been. And then we're able to tie that in with some of the recovery for the date it was last seen, the access point it was last connected to with the SSID, and the time that it was last connected to that. So we've had a number of customers that have been able to do a large amount of recovery of devices that had been lost, making a direct impact in terms of their bottom line and spend on device. And to quickly try to wrap things up here, because I'm running a little short on time, utilization. So this is a really big one that we see a lot of people focused in on, whether they're looking at which apps are installed, the categories, so whether they're business apps, non-business apps, utilities, etc. The names, the versions, comparing version numbers across those, the deployment, looking at the usage of those across the devices and across sites, so that you can make sure that you're optimizing who's using what. And then a lot of troubleshooting type information. This ties in with devices being rebooted and whether that was done system or event. And then diving into some of the potential causes, looking at our applications. So in application not responding, we're able to look at the name of the app, the package, the method, the class line number, the root cause, to give a lot more detail around troubleshooting some of these issues. And again, all of this can go into help reducing the number of support calls coming in and some of those no fault founds for repair that some of our customers are struggling with. And then our last piece here is looking at network performance, whether that's device-oriented or if it's around access points. So we can start looking at, there's thresholds around the decibel ratings that we're looking at, and then from the device perspective, how many are below those thresholds, and then from a site perspective as well. So we can start looking at some of the layouts of that and whether maybe there's some gaps in connectivity or if it's a device that might need to be addressed. So that was kind of a quick overview, diving in through some of these unique data points. I really would encourage everyone to attend Powen's talk. The time listed here is Central Time. You can check your own schedule. He's going to do a deep dive. He's going to go in, show how to actually call some of the APIs and use them to show into a unique app or interface. If you want to learn more, go to the developer portal. I've got the link here. You can see all of the different APIs, the documentation we have behind them. And we do have a demo environment that we can provide people access to. If you're interested in this, please reach out to your Zebra account managers or reach out to me. Happy to answer any more questions. So thank you very much. Really appreciate all your time.